Now it is time for our final presentation, exploring the impacts of AI on the workforce and how AI can reconfigure recruitment, promotion, and workplace learning processes. Please welcome Nitin Deckha. As principal of Enliven Learning, he spreads ideas and strategies to guide learners, clients, and organizations in the areas of leadership development, intercultural competence, and the future of work, including human AI integration. Nitin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. I'm just waiting to be able to start my video. It's just been disabled. Okay, there we go. Now you can see me. Thank you very much, Brandy, for that kind introduction, and welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be joining you, and just give me a moment to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, as you can see, and I'm just going to get this organized. Okay, so I just heard from Tara answering some of the questions, and one of the concerns was around job displacement and job loss, and so I'm going to start off with that in this presentation, from anxiety to augmentation. I am an educator, I'm a consultant, and I do work with a lot of teams that there is an underlying fear around what are the long-term implications of AI usage. And I'm trying in this presentation to address that anxiety, address that fear and concern, situated with some other kinds of anxiety, but also look at, as Tara was describing, some of the opportunities for human and AI augmentation. And in fact, actually champion the idea that it is a good time to be a human and to really start taking stock and appreciating some of those skills. So that's where I'm going to begin. And in terms of what I want to talk about today, there's sort of five large things. The first part I sort of hinted already, to kind of situate AI in a sense of ongoing change. There's social change, economic change, technological change, of course, cultural change, if you like. Um, and then think about how AI will disrupt work. So here, I want to focus less on, oh, all these jobs are going to disappear, and we see these stories about the bottom rung of career trajectories and ladders are disappearing. I think that it probably is a response to some of the news stories that we're seeing. But what we may not be seeing at the same time is how AI is encouraging us to look at our work that we do ourselves and that others do, and look at the tasks and skills and to recalibrate and reimagine. And so that kind of reimagination process gets us to number three, which is thinking about what are those human skills that we want to be fostering still, and how can humans and AI collaborate together. And so to help give an example of that, I put in there's some work profiles. Actually, I used one that was just sort of generated by AI in and of itself to help show how that can be performed, yeah, in a new kind of way, where there will be still human skills and where there will be opportunities for. And I would invite you to think about your own work and the work you do for others in your team to reimagine that. And lastly, given I'm hoping I'm speaking to an audience of HR professionals, talent professionals, people leaders, I really think there's a pivotal role that you can play. You may not recognize that role at the moment, but I'm hoping that that's where I want to leave you with something that you can do to be that champion of the human in any kind of future work process. So let's start with situating AI in a context of social and economic change. I guess we've got to ask ourselves, why are we feeling anxious? And really, I work with a lot of younger people. I recently written a piece around Gen Z and burnout, and there's a great deal of anxiety out there uh, for various kinds of reasons. And I feel that the arrival, if you will, of Gen AI on a mainstream level has only precipitated all these undercurrents that have been sort of bubbling up. That some stem from the impact of COVID-19, but there's also the impact of disruptive technology in general, not only AI, but others. Um, the sense of social media and the ongoing kind of misinformation, disinformation, and the erosion of trust, and the impact of climate change. More generally, that's leading to many, especially younger people, feeling anxious. And as we see with what here in Canada, we're thinking about what is happening economically as well. There's anxiety around the economy. We've seen growing inequality um, that predates the arrival of AI and more social inequality. And with that, a fraying social infrastructure in terms of education, healthcare, social services. So there's already an underlying ongoing issue around anxiety, and now there's a kind of added threat, if you will, added fear of the impacts of AI and job displacement and job change. And generally, we're not always receptive to job change, but it's sort of how can we think about it? And so uh, there are many reasons why we could be anxious about work. Now, this is actually several years old from Policy Horizons
Nathan,
Canada. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Quite a few
Oh,
people are having trouble hearing you clearly. Um,
oh.
I don't know if there's
That,
anything that you can do differently on your end.
how is this better now?
It sounds better to me. Yes.
Can you hear me, Tracy Villeneuve? Maybe I'll just take a moment. Is that better for everyone? I apologize.
I think it sounds much better now. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for interrupting. Um, so let me go back to what I was saying about the anxiety about the future of work. What's happening there? There are many different things. We know that full-time work is illusory for most. There is more and more temporary work, contractual work, work that does not have benefits or pensions. So that is, oh, it's muffled. The mic seems to be an issue. The other thing I can do is this. I can take off.
Well, yeah. Why don't we do that and
How
see
does
how
this,
that works?
does that sound
That's
better?
much better.
Okay, sorry with
Yes.
my AirPods. Okay, I do apologize. I'm at my workplace, and so I wanted to um, not have the kind of the outside noise bother you. But if you're okay with this and this is better, then I will continue this way. No problem. Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
there's the gig economy, which we are, can bring us opportunities. But it also has the downside of that kind of growing hustle culture, which also can create anxiety, especially within a context of rising cost of living, housing unaffordability. Then we can see that with new technologies, it's not like all jobs will disappear or your whole work will be transformed all at once. It'll be accretive and the sense of encroachment that gradually things are changing and you're kind of maybe um, losing some of that control, if you will. Even if you are, maybe if you work in a factory in manufacturing, you may be used to working with robots and you see that kind of already aspects of your work being automated. But for many people who work with so-called knowledge work, maybe they thought, oh, I'll be free from automation and what I do, my thinking work, my cognitive skills, they can't be replaced. And we're seeing, yes, there is going to be more and more of that encroachment. It also is not safe. And that kind of trust there between many kinds of brokers, such as, the human intermediaries is broken in that process. Just think about what's happened with travel agents or the mortgage broker. More and more technologies can provide us that quick information. And of course, we know with the impact of COVID, the separation from where we work and live can challenge us in terms of connection and community. So, uh, so I think it's completely. I just want to just check to make sure. Okay. People can hear. I think it's completely legitimate that people feel anxious, and I would encourage you to start there to acknowledge that because this is kind of rapid sense of disruption, and it's sort of happening. People have talked about the poly crisis, like all these different things are happening all at once. But I would urge you to also consider, is there another way to look at it? And so this image from a number of years ago, but it just shows how this idea of we've gone through processes of automation. Some people have called it various kinds of industrial revolutions. And in the past, if you think back, we were mainly the arrival of the first machines of allowed machines to do some of that dirty and dangerous work and relieves kind of the kind of onerous manual labor that many humans and even at that point even children did. And then if we go into the 20th century, that early computing systems, the arrival of airline kiosks and ATMs and call centers, there was some opportunity to routinize some of those transactions. So work that might have been like dirty, dangerous, dull was automated. But now the kind of that fear and the challenge is machines are encroaching on our ability to make decisions. Uh, and so what are humans going to do? And so that's the kind of both that the anxiety and that risk, but also that opportunity that is there now. So I guess to summarize, unlike the prior automations that primarily substituted the physical labor, we are now in an era where there's a possibility to augment our cognitive and our decision-making tasks. So we have access to, more information, more models, more processes, and that can also then make us think about some of those human skills. And here I've pointed out our creativity, our complex problem solving, maybe our ethical judgment, even our lived experience can be a repertoire of experience that we can draw upon to leverage in this opportunity to collaborate with AI. And that's sort of really both an exciting time, but also that needs some training and skill. So I like this graph because it sort of captures that the fact that, we've talked about that automation. And so you see here, that's going to be, lead to maybe less work. And there's all the atomization where, we're separated from our work, our process, like the time task, we're doing a piece of the work. And the larger part of alienation in terms of how we work with others. We're still social beings. We need to make those connections. But a lot of routine, predictable tasks are going the way of automation and atomization. But as you can see up here, the human and the machine and that idea of augmentation, especially in those areas where there's more complexity and ambiguity, you're going to need to rely. You're going to need to sharpen your decision making. So rather than thinking somehow, we'll use AI and I'll just do sort of the autopilot approach, and I won't, check what it's doing. There may be some things where you can step back and let it do work in the background. But when it comes to critical situations, whether it's transparency, accountability, where something is on the line, you're going to might want to make sure that you have that sharpness of your own skills. So, in fact, I would argue the uh, the future belongs to people who are both willing to invest in sharpening some of those human skills. And we see these now, even this notion of human skills. Uh, Honestly, no one was talking about this 6, 7 years ago. We used to call them soft skills, perhaps. And even that word soft was already kind of putting them into a box and into kind of less important as the technical skills. But as we see more of the technical skills that can be automated, uh, and AI can be better, for example, coding and computer programming. We're thinking there's more and more attention by researchers, by think tanks, by the big consulting companies and others. Um, what are those complex human skills that we are going to still need people to do? And do we have those people? And this is where you, as HR professionals and people leaders, come in to really start answering that question. So, when we say about disruption, I know there's that fear about, yes, I'm going to lose my job. Um, Another way to think about it is how is the work you're doing going to change in terms of the tasks and the skills? And I think that is a more fulsome and more pragmatic approach to thinking about how you're going to adapt. Okay, so uh, if we think about the skills, what are the things that we need to fulfill tasks to achieve those work outcomes? And I think that requires us both doing some own reflection of what are our skills as humans, but what are the potential skills of Gen AI? And of course, this is the challenge because Gen AI seems to be developing those skills at a far more rapid rate than humans can develop their own skills. And so there needs to be that kind of inventory happening. But even if you think about the changing job that you're doing now, really understanding what are the tasks that are needed to achieve those work outcomes. What skills do I have? What skills does Janaea have that it could be doing? And then you're going to be thinking then, where can there be that bridge where we can work together? So we need to discern the following. Which aspects of our work and the future workforce is at high risk of automation? So, as we said, there's already the sense that there is going to be work that is going to be at high risk for automation, maybe more that routine, predictable kind of the work. But what aspects could be augmented through AI? And because AI, you might think, oh, there's so much of out there. How do I keep track? There's so many things out there to learn and to think about that augmentation of where in which you could use that uh, enlargement, where that you could use that support, where your changing work might need that support that's not presently there. And then where are those human skills still going to be really valuable, which we need to sharpen? And those are sort of the things that each leader, each professional needs to sort of think about both for their organization and for themselves. Even this notion of discerning takes that kind of process where we're now thinking critically about and analytically about our own skills, which we may not always do, and then thinking how that can be connected with what AI can do. So let's look at some human skills and human AI collaboration. So, whoops, I skipped over this incredibly dense slide, and I do apologize. This comes from Johnny Giacomelli, who I follow on LinkedIn, and I recommend that you do MIT researcher. And this was from last year, just a simple 2 by 2 diagram, which of course simplifies things. Rather, and it's not going to work for everyone, but it is a place to begin. So you might look here, the lower left here, low augmentation and low automation. So not a lot of automation possibility or augmentation possibility. So it's sort of like a wait and see kind of there. Be ready, get prepared is what the advice is for that. But if you are in a spot up here where there's still low automation, but there's high augmentation potential. For example, people might be in research and development experts. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to develop or upskill some of the work that they're doing and expand the job. And you want to still keep Giacomelli talks about the superhuman in the loop. And I like the notion of superhuman because it points to that idea of augmentation of skills, whereby we can leverage what we can do as humans with the AI and maybe do and expand what we can do. If we're down here where there's already high automation and high augmentation, this is the example of the kind of level one customer support. Those people are at risk of job displacement. Giacomelli suggests, though, that there's human skills that might be latent there, that kind of might just be not being used, underutilized, and can these folks have opportunities for reskilling and redeployment in the organization where it might be needed. And then as you get sort of in a little bit higher augmentation and automation potential, again, maybe we're redesigning jobs. And so that takes that HR professional that is looking at different roles, that takes different leaders and managers to thinking, what kind of outcomes do we want? Are the jobs that we have designed right now Are they going to lead to those outcomes, or do we have to redesign those and create new upskilling opportunities? So that's again one kind of map. And another way to think about it is with this framework, again, kind of a two by two, but it is giving consideration for, you'll see here, human AI collaboration, giving consideration to what's called tacit knowledge. And, this idea tacit means like quiet, it's in the background, it's that lived experience, it's that institutional memory that gets lost when there's a lot of turnover. It can be context specific. It's things that are not generally written down. They're not in strategic plans. They're the ways in which people work. It's part of the work culture. So that is very difficult to automate. It's not in some big, large language model. Okay. So that's one part of it. And you want to think where there is going to be need for um, someone to take accountability, someone to say, the buck stops here. What's the consequence if AI makes a mistake on a sales strategy or a marketing strategy or what have you? Who will take responsibility? So again, that's why Giacomelli's superhuman in the loop is still necessary. So there's many different scenarios here where you can see different ways to use AI in maybe summarizing documents, screening resumes, creating those advertisements. But the larger parts of setting strategy or integrating systems or thinking about due diligence or those high value contacts and contracts, you want to have that superhuman actively involved. So this just quote kind of summarizes that approach with collaboration. It doesn't mean that everything has to be doesn't mean that it's always better than automation. Some things we want just to rely on that automation because it's been proven to work. But where we think we need that fail-safe, where we see the benefit of that human expertise, where even maybe our customers, our clients, our people want that human voice, that human experience, we want to think about how humans and AI can work together. So a different way to think about collaboration. So how can we look at that as a persona? So here is just this fictional persona. I use Google Gemini 2.5 to create, and hence you can use this as a beginning point, right? This is not the end point, just a beginning point. It's like a heuristic, like a little model that even it can be used to sort of think about your own work. Here I used the idea of a financial advisor, kind of like a trusted intermediary between, all the different kinds of financial products out there and you as an investor, that kind of thing. So let's just see what it suggests. So a lot of the aspects where, you know, modeling scenarios, compliance of issues, notices of risks, screen kind of fitting, creating client memos and communications, simulating, growth and what have you change. That's where AI can play an incredible role and probably already is with that kind of enhancing and automation. It can allow that advisor to monitor the market, to create kinds of agents, even autonomous agents to generate data, pull things that are happening maybe in real time and provide accurate information, not just sort of quarterly updates that you might do with clients, but even more kinds of opportunities. But where's that human skill? Well, think about if we're in Ontario, the kind of complexity of the province, multicultural, multiracial, multilingual, lots of different issues, different cultural worldviews and knowledges. And part of that, if you're thinking about working with clients as a financial advisor, you're building that trust. There's often situations that happen. For example, the loss of loved ones that requires empathy, that requires maybe high touch, maybe even cross-cultural understanding. Those are things that are going to be necessary to be built if they're not already built and designed in any kind of learning and can really enhance value of what you can do as an advisor. It helps build that trust and confidence and commitment. So there in this idea of this partnership. There may be situations where the expert advice in terms of complex tax issues or compliance issues or changing laws makes you that kind of your as an advisor being on the top of things becomes really valuable because you're that trusted partner. So there's just an example there. Just to kind of bring it all, together, here is I want you to think about as those HR professionals, what role can you play? You are pivotal in identifying which tasks and skills are needed to realize desirable work outcomes. Um, which of these may be fulfilled through AI, which require human skills and AI augmentation. And this involves how do you define roles, create roles, recruit for roles, retain people, promote people, and how are you developing people in terms of really continuous learning. And so, really, in that sense, as those professionals in HR and people and culture, you are the champion of the human at work. And so, really, we have seen there was a recent World Economic Forum report about human-centric skills and how they are not really part of training programs. Like we assume that they're in some leadership development programs, um, and there might be some aspects of it, but when was the last time you saw a human skills training program? I don't think most places have those. So if that would be a place to start to develop those kinds of programs and opportunities for learning, and then build that AI literacy as well. So it's not just one or the other, but both across teams and organizations. And then think about how those work tasks that can benefit from that collaboration and discern where is that human expertise going to be paramount? And it's going to be paramount in all sorts of work, up and down. So it's not just something for your C-suite folks or your senior leadership team. Often we start there and then we stop there. We really need to think about up and down and across organizations so that people can leverage their human expertise. I also think that this can support engagement at work and a sense of belonging at work, which we know there's a lot of crisis around the lack of those in today's organizations. So thank you very much. I really appreciated you listening. I'm happy to take some questions. I just created a short little Menti if you'd like to leave me any feedback. And failing that, I just have, if you also, I've put my LinkedIn, if anyone would like to connect or talk further, I'd be happy to. And so I think I'll stop the share and answer any questions.
Thanks, Nathan. That was really informative.
Oh,
If you
thank you,
have
Jen.
questions and you haven't already done so, please enter them in the Q&A now. I have one question here. Which
Uh-huh.
human skills do you think are most important for HR leaders to develop for the future of work?
Wow. Well, I think, so I'll say one skill that a lot of, I think, people underestimate, which is creativity. And I see this in the classroom. I see this with leaders. People don't know what that is. We don't necessarily do a great job in building that skill across our educational systems. And certainly, I don't see it in professional learning. So I think that can go with imagination. It can also go with innovation programs. So I would think that would be a skill to develop.